Hello. So in this video I'm going to be talking about an episode of the TV show Black Mirror that was released on Netflix in 2023 called Joan Is Awful. This episode is about someone who has their life turned into a Netflix show without their knowledge or consent, which, if you've watched the videos I've uploaded so far on this channel, you will know is exactly what happened to me. Before this video, I made videos about the movie Kate and the movie Don't Look Up, which were also both released on Netflix, and this episode contains many of the same themes and underlying symbolism as those movies. If you want to watch these videos beforehand, then there is a link to the playlist in the description. The episode centers around the character Joan Tate and begins with her waking up, brushing her teeth, eating breakfast, and driving to work. She sings along to a rap song in her car, like Don't Look Up begins with Kate singing along to a rap song, and she is wearing a green pantsuit. Like Kate in Don't Look Up is almost always depicted wearing green, which, as I explained in the previous videos, is symbolic of non-duality, which is a core theme of this episode and a core theme in Don't Look Up and the movie Kate and in my life. This character's name is Joan Tate, Tate which rhymes with Kate, and Joan as in Joan of Arc, the Catholic saint who is remembered for wearing masculine clothes. She died on 30th of May 1431, and 30th of May is her feast day and also my birthday. In recognition of this and identifying with her story, I've often used a picture of Joan of Arc as my profile picture on various websites. I suppose if they also called this character Kate, it might have been too direct as to what this episode is about, although the name Kate does come up later in the episode, which I will get to. Something else I often used for profile pictures was this picture of Wednesday Addams from the 90s Addams Family movies. This was also turned into a TV show on Netflix and had this actress, Christina Ricci, in a cameo role. I'll come back to this later in the video. Joan arrives to work at an IT company called Sonical, which has the same numerology as one of the core themes of this episode. In the previous video I spoke about the theme of the Kabbalistic tree of life in Don't Look Up and in my life. In Kabbalah, the phrase Adam Kadmon, which means the primordial man, represents the person created in the image of God that is neither male or female and is associated with the middle path or the Keter Sephiroth on the tree of life. When Joan arrives in work, she is greeted by a man wearing a skirt, who kind of looks like a more masculine version of me. He is also wearing a green shirt and a cardigan similar to one I used to wear a lot. Joan is made to fire someone at work, who is then escorted out by security. The employee says how she just put a deposit down on a new apartment. Around the time these events were occurring in my life, I was looking to buy a house with my boyfriend. We had been talking about getting a dog when we moved. We ended up going to see a house that was number 28, and we spoke with the woman who lived there, who happened to have a dog the exact same breed we had been talking about getting, and she said she was moving after experiencing a series of weird synchronicities. Her name was June, the 6th month of the year. 6 and 28, the first two perfect numbers. After everything suddenly started happening all at once, I had to leave the job and we ended up not buying the house, like this character in the show. I lost my job and the home I was going to move into. We then see this shot which clearly displays the core themes of this episode. Joan is then vaping outside and accidentally drops her vape on the head of the former employee as she is leaving. She then goes to speak to a therapist where she mentions that she is like a middleman between the board up in the clouds and the staff below. She is in the middle, wearing green, representing non-duality, and talking about the above and the below. As above, so below. She also says that she doesn't feel like the main character in the story of her life. Joan then goes to meet her ex, Mac, who, like the character Randall Mindy in Don't Look Up, has very similar things about him to my boyfriend in real life. There is also a similar character to this in the movie Sam and Kate, which I spoke about in the previous video. While talking to him, she says that she was talked into getting this hairstyle by her hairdresser. The distinct hairstyle is a significant part of the plot, just like how in the video I made about the movie Kate I spoke about how the Kate character starts off with the same hairstyle as me, cuts her hair short like I was tricked into getting mine cut short when I was living in Japan, just like that movie is set in Japan, just like the character in The Office in Joan Is Awful has similar length hair that I had, just like the distinctive hairstyle of the Kate character in Don't Look Up is very similar to how I've had my hair. Just like Jennifer Lawrence was talked into having that style for the character in the movie by someone else. When the events depicted in this episode of Black Mirror occurred in my life, the stress of it caused some of my hair to turn white in the exact same place as this character Joan, so even this hairstyle is just like my own. In the movie Kate, the Kate character then goes on to cut her hair even shorter, which is something I'll come back to in a later video. When Joan gets home, they turn on Streamberry, which is the in-universe equivalent of Netflix. This title, Streamberry, is a numerology riddle for the name of the group that have done all of this to me, though I don't want to mention the name of the group in this video. This is the same group that is represented by the Varric character in the movie Kate. This group have done many things to me throughout my life with their set of numbers repeatedly attached to those events that are outside of the scope of this video. The name of the founder of that group has the same numerology as the number of days from the day that this actress, Annie Murphy, was born to the day I was born. And the actresses that played the Kate characters in the movies Kate and Don't Look Up were also born on days with significant connections to this group. Again, I don't have any special kind of problem with this group other than having been really hurt by them, and I don't want to say anything to in any way attack or undermine them. I'm only mentioning this because this numerology riddle shows that, like in the movies Kate and Don't Look Up that were also released on Netflix, this shows that the same system of numerology is clearly being used here too. When Joan and Krish are looking for what to watch on Streamberry, they find a show called Joan Is Awful. The character in the show is called Joan, has the same hairstyle as Joan, and wears the same green suit as Joan. The Streamberry show starts off just like the Netflix show started, with her waking up next to her boyfriend. The actor who plays the boyfriend in the show is portrayed by Himesh Patel, who also just so happened to play the Kate character's boyfriend in Don't Look Up. Himesh Patel was also in the movie Yesterday, which is connected to this story, and I will be speaking about this in a later video. Not long after the events depicted in this episode of Black Mirror occurred in my life, I had someone come into my life just like this, half Indian, who had had similar strange things happen to him in his life, with clear numerology and astrology connected to me in these themes that I've discussed in these videos. He was also an important part of a major psyop that occurred in my life not long after having watched the movies Kate and Don't Look Up that was related to the character Annie in the movie Kate, that was full of the numbers connected to the group that I spoke about before, connected to similar kind of events that have happened much earlier in my life, where there were people who suddenly came into my life in similar ways, with strange names and connections, doing strange things and then disappearing forever. The point here is that, just like I am the real-life counterpart to Joan and the Kate characters in the movies Kate, Don't Look Up and Sam and Kate, there are real-life counterparts to the characters Annie, Philip, Krish, Randall, Mac and Mark in Sam and Kate. But it's not my place to speak about their personal details and the numerology that connects them to this story here. The nature of this particular event, on top of everything else that happened, was so cruel and messed up it left me with no choice but to do everything I could to understand this system, like how in the movie Kate, the Kate character says her life was not her own, and she's not looking away from this system anymore. And later on in this show, the Streamberry CEO is talking about the show and says how it puts the targeted individual into a state of mesmerized horror, and they literally can't look away, which is to drive engagement. I don't know how I'm supposed to have any kind of life until these things move forward or are resolved, and since then, more things related to these movies have happened in my life, and I was drugged without my knowledge or consent again at the end of last year. When Joan is talking to her therapist, she mentions that Krish's food is bland. I don't know about the real-life counterpart to Krish's cooking, but if it's in comparison to the real-life counterpart to Mac, then his food is anything but bland, and I could see how anybody else's cooking could be considered bland in comparison. As Joan and Krish continue to watch the show, they point out how the character in the show is in a similar bedroom and uses the same toothpaste. Joan tries to deny that her hair is the same as the character in the show, even though it obviously is the same. It then shows Eric, the male character with long hair and a skirt from the office earlier on, watching the show at home, and then the character Joan fired earlier, in a bar watching the show, next to a female character with short hair and masculine clothes. Everyone comments on how the show makes Joan look bad, like how in Don't Look Up, the Kate character received an overwhelmingly negative reaction to her first TV appearance. Joan then goes on to have a panic attack watching the episode. When I found out about the Kate movie and various other things, it all happened around the same time when I was working for an IT company, doing programming in an office, just like the one Joan works at in the show. Because I had been drugged with something and was having major tics and muscle spasms. This, combined with the stress of everything else that was happening to me, caused me to have several panic attacks while I was working there. It then cuts to Eric from the office watching the show with his boyfriend, and he complains that the show has made him come across as the gayest man on earth. I suppose this is like how I felt embarrassed when I got my hair cut like this, like there is a joke in Don't Look Up about the Kate character not wanting to look like a lesbian. The TV show goes on to the scene of Joan talking to her therapist, where she is talking about how she finds Chris to be vanilla compared to Mac, but the show exaggerates it to make it look worse than it was, which leads to Chris leaving her, just like the Philip character in Don't Look Up breaks up with Kate. The TV show then moves on to the scene where they find out about the show on Streamberry. The next level of Joan is portrayed by Cate Blanchett, who was also in Don't Look Up. Kate in Don't Look Up again, and here it is directly, Kate on a show on Netflix. Between the day Cate Blanchett was born and the day I was born was 1,150 weeks, like the numerology of my name. This was also 22 years and 16 days, also like the numerology of my name. This number also relates to Revelation 22:16, which mentions the morning star, which is a name for the planet Venus. In the previous video I spoke about Jennifer Lawrence, who plays the Kate character in Don't Look Up, and the Divine Feminine Code. This episode of Black Mirror was released exactly 394 months after Jennifer Lawrence was born, which is also the numerology of the phrase Divine Feminine. Between the day the Kate movie was released and the day this episode of Black Mirror was released was 91 weeks and 5 days, which is also like the numerology of the phrase Divine Feminine, like I was born 9 months and 15 days after Jennifer Lawrence. Mary Elizabeth Winstead, who plays Kate in the Kate movie, was 37 years and 26 days old when Don't Look Up was released, like the numerology of the word Kate, and I was 11,060 days old when the Kate movie was released, like the numerology of my name and the title of the movie. If you are finding this multi-layered numerology confusing, this episode of Black Mirror also later adds a source Joan to the plot, a real-life counterpart to the Joan played by Annie Murphy. As I am the real-life counterpart to the real-life counterpart, this makes 5 layers of Kate/Joan, and on each end of this chain is Kate C and Kate with a C, Kate with everything at the top, and Kate with nothing at the bottom, the first and the last. Revelation 22:13-16 states, I am the Alpha and the Omega, the first and the last, the beginning and the end. Blessed are those who wash their robes, so that they might have the right to the tree of life, and may enter the city by its gates. But outside are the dogs, the sorcerers, the sexually immoral, the murderers, the idolaters, and everyone who loves and practices falsehood. I, Jesus, have sent my angel to give you this testimony for the churches. I am the root and offspring of David, the bright morning star. It's like how Kate in Don't Look Up has nothing, and the antithesis of her is Peter Ishawell, the tech billionaire who has everything, the first and the last, Kate and Peter, Keta, the middle path. This point about Kate C and Kate with a C is like this book that I had recommended to me earlier this year, The 3 Lives of Kate K. Kate K with a C, written by Kate with a K. The story is about a writer who has used multiple different names, her real surname being Callahan, the same as me, and the first character she speaks to on the first page is called Melody, like my middle name. Joan then goes inside to find the TV show replaying the same scene of Chris breaking up with her that just happened, just like the movies Kate and Don't Look Up contain events that happened in my life both before and after the movies came out. The show and the show in the show are called Joan Is Awful, and Joan says how it makes her look like a monster, just like the Kate character in Don't Look Up is called crazy, a liar, and horrible memes are made about her online, and the Kate character in the Kate movie is presented as a brutal assassin. There is then this shot of this one eye symbolism, with the same eye in the dark as the Kate character in the Kate movie, and the shot I spoke about in the previous video in Don't Look Up, which correlates with my birth numerology. In the next scene, Joan arrives in work where she also covers up one eye, and again speaks about how people are looking at her like she's a monster. Eric then says she is being fired for breaking a non-disclosure agreement, for what the character in the TV show said, a bit like how Kate in Don't Look Up was arrested for speaking about classified information, and also forced to sign a non-disclosure agreement. Kate in that movie worked with computers, and it has the same theme of gender, just like in the previous video I spoke about Edward Snowden and Chelsea Manning, who leaked classified information and worked with computers, which also has the same theme of gender. Just like how in my life I worked with computers, and I'm here talking about this information which was previously kept secret, and my life has the same theme of gender. This also ties into the theme that I have spoken about extensively with the Age of Aquarius, Ganymede, and the theme of knowledge being poured out. There is this shot of her leaving the office, and Eric waves at her, and then a shot of Joan at home, watching the show, where Eric, instead of just waving, points to her and shouts, "Sayonara, Queen." What happens in the show is an exaggerated version of what happens in real life. Joan then looks at a newspaper article about the show, where she mockingly says, "I'm in a pantsuit," about Mona Javadi, the head of Streamberry. Mona is perhaps a reference to the feminine component of Adam Kadmon, which I spoke about earlier, and Mona Javadi has the same 576 numerology as my name. Joan then goes to see a lawyer who explains that Joan somehow agreed to this when she clicked accept on the terms of service agreement, and that they're getting the information about her life from her phone, and that the show is actually CGI created by advanced AI using the likeness of actors, and there is nothing that Joan can do about any of it. The lawyer talks about how if you start talking about a particular kind of product near a phone, how you then get advertisements for those kinds of products because the phones are listening to you. However, like Joan in the show, the things that have happened by people spying on me through my phone have gone significantly beyond this. I've mentioned before how very specific lines of dialogue that I have said in my life have ended up in these movies, how places I've been to and taken photos of on my phone have ended up in these movies. For an example, one time I was speaking with my boyfriend about songs we liked when we were children. The next day we got into the car, and despite me not having heard one of the particular songs since I was a child, or even hearing about the artist, the song immediately started playing when we turned on the radio. I went to get my hair cut not long after, and the song was playing on the speaker. I turned on a live stream, and someone I'm very sure is connected to the groups that do this mentioned the name of the song for no apparent reason, unrelated to the context, and it was certainly not the kind of song that person would usually like or talk about. They also mentioned another band that I'd been talking about, and that person had done several similar things to this. A while after this, that singer seemed to suddenly have a surprise comeback, appeared on a YouTube show that I was watching, and performed at Glastonbury. The first day my boyfriend went into work after that conversation, one of the very obscure songs that he brought up was playing on the speakers in his workplace when he got into work. Things like this have happened to me so many times. I don't know why, if it was to humiliate me, intimidate me, or what else. Joan then decides that the only thing she can do is something that Salma Hayek, the actress portraying her in the show, would object to being depicted using her likeness. So she eats a lot of fast food, drinks some laxative, dresses up as a cheerleader, and defecates in a wedding in a church. This reminds me of one time when I confronted one of the people gang-stalking me. I'd realised by that point that they were probably looking at pictures I had taken on my phone, so I wrote a funny message to that person on a piece of paper and took a photo of it with the toilet in the background. The group that has done these things to me also has to do with the church, and all of the themes and everything that I've talked about come back to Christianity. Joan is then arrested, and a mugshot is taken where you can see that she is the same height as me and the actress who played Kate in the Kate movie. Her stunt is shown to have the desired effect when Salma Hayek goes to see her lawyer, and also finds out that she can do nothing about it, so she goes to meet Joan in person. Joan explains that she did what she did because the show was made without her knowledge or consent, and she lost her job and fiancé, like I lost my job because of everything that happened, like I ended up having to live alone because of everything that happened. They agree to break into the Streamberry headquarters and destroy the quantum computer that is used to create the show. While they are there, they overhear Streamberry CEO Mona Javadi talking about the show, and she says that they chose Joan to do this to because she is a totally average, nobody person. That is to say, average means that she is in the middle. Mona Javadi then goes on to explain that Joan Is Awful is just the beginning, and they plan to launch this kind of content personalised to all of their subscribers, and that their research has found that making the show negative appeals to their psyche better than positive content. Joan and Salma then break into the room containing the quantum computer, and the security guard explains that there is a source Joan below Annie Murphy's Joan, and that they are in fictive level 1, generated by the quantum computer in source Joan's world. There is a shot of Joan on a monitor, where she is working in an office, just like the office I was working in when I first found out about the movie Kate. Joan then goes on to destroy the computer, which then cuts to source Joan destroying the quantum computer in her reality, and Annie Murphy in the role Salma Hayek was in, and she is then arrested and taken out by security. The next scene is of Source Joan talking to a therapist where she says that she now feels like the main character in her own life, like how the main characters in the movies Kate and Don't Look Up were both based on me. She is also then shown working in a shop, just like how the Kate character in Don't Look Up started off working with computers and ended up working in a shop. With regards to the numerology of when this show was released on the 15th of June 2023, it's the first episode of Season 6 on 28 date numerology. Like 6 and 28, the first two perfect numbers. There are 49 weeks and 6 days between then and my 33rd birthday, like 496, the third perfect number, and the numerology of the phrase Adam Kadmon. And also like the word eclipse sums to 33. My 33rd birthday was also the day Donald Trump was convicted for covering up paying hush money to porn star Stormy Daniels, like how in the movie Don't Look Up, the Kate character points out that the Donald Trump character reluctantly agrees to help them stop the comet to distract from the scandal to do with her and her porn star boyfriend speaking truth to power. The date is 15/6, like 156. The number that I explained about in the video Eclipsing Duality is all about eclipses. Both 28 and 33 sum to 156 when written out, like how the Twin Towers were destroyed 33 years after construction began and 28 years after construction was completed, and they were then eclipsed into one tower. The last piece of steel was ceremonially removed on my birthday. This was also exactly 574 months after I was born, like the numerology of the word perfect. The character name Joan Tate also has matching numerology with Wormwood, and this episode was released a span of 8 years, 1 month and 28 days before the 11th of August 2031, which is a date I'll be talking about in the future to do with Wormwood. 8128 is the fourth perfect number. Don't Look Up also has this theme of Joan of Arc in it, where the president is called Janie Orlean, and her son is called Jason Orlean. Janie O, which is pretty close to Joan, and Jason, which contains all the letters of Joan. And Orlean, like Joan of Arc, was famous for her role in the Siege of Orleans. Getting back to the Netflix show Wednesday. Wednesday was released 11,500 days after I was born and 177 days after my birthday, like the numerology of my name. This was also a span of 62 weeks and 6 days after the release of the Kate movie, like the numerology of my name, and a span of 29 weeks and 2 days before the release of Joan Is Awful, also like the numerology of my name. The actress Jenna Ortega was born on the 27th of September 2002, the date that is written 27/9, like the 279 numerology of my name, and is also a very significant date to the group I mentioned earlier. This was also 1 year and 16 days after 9/11, like the numerology of my name and the word perfect, and like 9/11 flipped upside down. Between 9/11 and the release of Wednesday was 11,006 weeks, again like 116. Jenna Ortega was born 463 days after the previous total solar eclipse, like the numerology of the phrase total eclipse, and 626 days after the previous total lunar eclipse, like the numerology of my name. Like I said, the Netflix show Wednesday stars Christina Ricci in a cameo role. I was born at almost the exact halfway point between Christina Ricci and Jenna Ortega, Kate in the middle, like Wednesday is the day in the middle of the week. Christina Ricci was born 11 years and 107 days before me, and there was 11 years and 17 weeks between the day I was born and the day Jenna Ortega was born, both like the 1117 numerology of the phrase Joan of Arc, and that was 4,125 days and 4,138 days. The difference between those numbers is 13, like the numerology of the word Joan. Let me just go on a little tangent before I get back to talking about Wednesday. As I've said before, another thing that happened to me around the time I was working in the office, like the one in the show, and finding out about these things, was that I was drugged with something that caused me to have tics and seizures. Despite never having spoken about Tourette's syndrome or Googling it, I was recommended videos on YouTube about a girl with Tourette's who had gone viral, and videos about people faking having Tourette's in order to go viral, and a video of singer Lewis Capaldi talking about having Tourette's, and specifically having a twitch in the neck, like I'd been having over and over again around that time. Lewis Capaldi was born 5 years, 4 months and 7 days after me, like the numerology of my name. This was also a span of 66 lunar phases and 8 days, also like the numerology of my name. There is something called brown lunation numbers, wherein each lunation from the beginning of 1923 are numbered, with each new lunation beginning with the new moon. I was born 5 years and 76 days before the beginning of brown lunation 9/11, like the numerology of my name and the phrase brown lunation. Lewis Capaldi was born 7 weeks and 5 days after the beginning of brown lunation 9/11, like the numerology of my name. The moon landing also took place in brown lunation 576, like the numerology of the phrase full moon, and Neil Armstrong died 576 lunar orbits after the moon landing. Chester Bennington, the lead singer of Linkin Park, died on the anniversary of the moon landing, exactly 576 months after it happened. This was also exactly 496 months after he was born, like the third perfect number. All of this is relevant because one of the plot points in the show Wednesday features Wednesday finding out that everyone around her are in a secret society called the Nightshade Society, which has the same numerology as the group I mentioned previously, and features a logo with similar elements and themes that is based around the phases of the moon. In the show, Wednesday suffers from seizures, like me, which allows her to see glimpses of the future, like how in Don't Look Up, Kate is the one to warn the world about a future destructive event that is ultimately related to the Book of Revelation, like how the system of numerology that I'm talking about here allows you to tap into how the world is run and get a sense of significant dates and future events before they happen. Wednesday also features a scene with her playing an instrument and an explosion, like how in the previous video I spoke about my songs featuring explosions that I wrote on guitar. It features several scenes of her solving riddles, includes a direct reference to the Book of Revelation, and it also features the Christian theme of eternal life with Wednesday talking to herself in a past life, and a zombie with the initials JC with the surname Crackstone, a little bit like the Stonecutters.
It's a secret. Shut up.
It also has a core theme of duality, where her side of the room and everything she wears is monochrome, while her roommate has everything in bright colours and has her hair dyed pink and blue. Wednesday is given a necklace, and her mother points out that, depending on which way you look at it, it can be an M or a W, up or down, which is also reflected in the logo of the Nightshade Society. Wednesday also features her wearing similar clothes to me, and the scene where blood rains down on the dance scene is a bit like my song that was referenced in the Cape movie with the lyrics, "Covered in blood is how I feel loved." There are also numerous other scenes in Wednesday that closely reflect themes of things I've spoken about or done. I also found out about both Wednesday and Joan Is Awful after I was recommended them on YouTube. The show Joan Is Awful was noted for its prescience in coming out not long after ChatGPT was released, with the plot point about using advanced AI to generate content. I recently watched the Back to the Future trilogy again, which many people will know features much predicted programming for 9/11 and also a character based on Donald Trump. There are many examples of things like this, movies and entertainment being used to foreshadow people and events that come onto the world stage or take place sometimes decades later. There is a line in the Kate movie that was also used on a promotional image where she says, "I'm Kate, and they're gonna know I was here. Everybody." Later on, Varric also says, "There are such big things waiting for you." On the promotional image for Joan Is Awful, it plainly states, "She's a real character." To me, all of this is proof that both the movies Kate and Don't Look Up are based on a real-life person, and that person can be no one other than me. I have more things to come that also connect me personally to these movies. Personally, I had so many strange things happen to me in my life before these movies came out, that I knew something was going to happen, but like I've said before, I'm really hurt by the way all of this has been done. I don't know why they did it in this way, where they've drugged me repeatedly and then just left me to suffer for so long. I've had no choice but to try and pick up the pieces, to do everything I could to learn about this system, to try to understand why all of this has happened, and I've been left with nothing. I still have to suffer from these tics every day, and there is no one I can talk to about any of it. That's all I have to say for this video. I've also put a link in the description to an interview with somebody with connections to the music industry, talking about having gone through some similar experiences to me, that I found very interesting. Thanks for watching.